Ruslan.
I feel like so many of us, when we're early in the process, God would allow us to have these like emotional mountaintop experiences with him. And I think those are important. I think those are good. I think there's a time and a place for that, right? It's like the honeymoon stage in a relationship. I'm gonna get a little personal here, okay? It's like the honeymoon stage in a relationship. It's like the honeymoon stage in a new friendship. You ever meet somebody and you just vibing and you just hanging out? It could be a platonic thing, a romantic thing. And initially there's that spark and that energy is there and we're excited and it's amazing, right? You know what happens is you go down the path and maybe you start courting that person or dating that person, you get engaged, you get married, and that initial emotional rush and everything just kind of just feeling glued together, you start discovering that it requires more than just kind of going with the flow and the emotions of things. And there's nothing wrong with emotions. Your emotions are messengers. So I think in our relationship with God, it's the same way. There's a honeymoon phase in a romantic relationship. There's a honeymoon phase in your relationships with new friends that you meet. And you just feel like you've known them your whole life. And what you discover, okay, I'm gonna get a little PG-13 R-rated. What you discover is the things that came natural early on in your marriage, in a romantic relationship, those of us that are married, having sex, right? You discover like it's fun, you have urges, you get married, you're like, yay. And he discovered that like, yo, to have a healthy sex life, that actually requires planning. It requires routine. It requires a schedule. I know you guys are like, what? Yeah. Like straight up, like anybody I know that's ever had like a thriving, flourishing intimacy life, it requires normal, like consistency, regular presence, and planning to then have a covenantal marriage that is thriving in a sex life. And when you discover that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, cool, right? And then you learn each other, and it gets better and better. And I just celebrated 13 years of marriage on Monday. It gets better and better, okay? And the same thing in our relationships. The older you get, the harder it is to have community because you have kids, you got careers, right? And if you want community, you have to make it regular. You got to plan it. You got to make it consistent. You got to make it something that is you're present for, and it's not something that you could just wing. When you're younger, you ain't got no responsibility. You're in school, you're doing this, you're doing that. You want it to be organic, yada, yada, yada. The older you get, the more responsibility you have, the more things you're doing. You got kids. And you get older and community becomes harder. You got to be more deliberate. You got to be more intentional. It's harder to go to that small group. It's harder to have regular gatherings with your friends. And it just requires intentionality. It just requires planning. It requires foresight. It requires knowing that these things don't just happen organically. They require effort. They require intentionality. They require a schedule, a regular schedule. This is why the church is so functional in building community for people. And so when it comes to a relationship with God, it's the same exact way. Yes, you might have those emotions that flood and hit you and it feels organic and God's always talking to you initially. But it's not that he stops talking to you. It's that it then requires the relationship to evolve and you to then make time for God. Just like I have to make time for my spouse, just like I have to make time for my kids, just like I have to make time for my friends. We all have to make time for God. And then you think that because you don't feel the same way you did I don't always feel the same way with my 6-year-old as I did when he was first born, and that experience and that rush of emotions, right? I don't feel the same way when he's 6 and now he could talk back to me, right? It's not always about feelings. It's about, are you present? Are you making time? Are you deliberate? Are you intentional? Are you disciplined? And if you walk with that mentality into all your relationships, your romantic relationships, your family relationships, your platonic relationships, your relationship with Jesus, your relationship with God, if you have that intentionality, you'll discover that things over time actually get better. I'm closer to God than I've ever been. And guess what? There's not a lot of emotions. There's not a lot of mountaintop moments. There are some times when I listen to worship music. I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, I played a Kirk Franklin song and started tearing up on the stream. There are those times where God will stir me up emotionally. There are those times where I hear something and I'll be like, ooh, like that's a word for me, right? But by and large, man, it's about the consistency of being present in a relationship, and listening and being deliberate. That's a word for some of y'all. That's a word for some of y'all marriages and y'all romantic relationships. That's a word for some of you guys' friendships. Some of y'all feel really lonely right now. You feel very isolated right now. However, you haven't made yourself very friendly. This will be the verse that glues all this together, okay? This will be the verse that glues all. Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be what? Be friendly. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That right there, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. Some of you guys feel alone, isolated, and you feel like no one cares for you. But my pushback would be, but have you made yourself friendly? I don't mean, well, texted that one person that one time. No, have you tried to build something regular and consistent for your friendships? I have friendships that are regular and consistent. I got friends that I go to the gym with regularly, Monday and Tuesday. I see them regularly. I got friends that I play basketball with Wednesday and Friday, right? Those are regular things, relationships that I have to fight for. I have to be intentional. Sometimes I don't feel like getting up, but I know that I'm doing two different things and I'm being intentional. I'm pressing into that, right? I'm pressing into that. And so one of the reasons why I'm hoping that we get into a house next year is I really have a heart to like do regular barbecues with my real friends in my real life. Like I really want to be in a place where I'm consistent. My house is available. We get together. We rent two different condos. There's not a lot of space to just have people over in our living room. Our place next door is 900 square feet or 850 square feet. This place is 850 square feet. So that is something that I'm being intentional about in terms of like, I want to do that. But there are those of you guys that like, maybe you can have people over. Maybe you can have that weekly barbecue. You're hungry for community, but you're not willing to organize it. You're hungry for relationships, but you're not willing to make yourself friendly. You're hungry for intimacy in your marriage, but you're not willing to make your intimacy and make yourself vulnerable in your marriage to be friendly. And you're looking for things to be organic. And then you then, I don't want to say have the nerve, because that's low-key how I feel. Like I feel like some of y'all have the nerve to say, well, God's not talking to me anymore. Like, no, that's nonsense. God is as close as you need him to be. God is as close as you want him to be. Your relationship with God is as close as you want. He's always there. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. All the time. He's here now. Consider this verse in Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. If you feel lonely, if you feel isolated, okay, I understand what that feeling is like. Have you made yourself friendly? And have you done it in a way where it's intentional, it's deliberate, it's consistent? You know, all the other things in life that you need to do to be successful at anything else. Why do we do this? Why do we do this silly thing where we think that the most important areas of life, the most important areas, your marriage, your family, and your friends, right? Your marriage, your family, your friends. These are the most important, specifically marriage and family. And then friends, community, it's important. Why do we think that those things don't have to submit to the law and the order of how everything else works in every other area of our life? If my nephew is learning to drive, guess what he has to do? He has to take classes. He has to learn information. He has to go practice. He has to then go take an exam. He has to be deliberate, intentional, calculated, and disciplined to get his driver's license. It requires training, intentionality, focus, discipline, practice. And then when you're on the road and you get your license, you still have to practice that restraint. We were driving home. I picked him up on Thursday. We were driving home on the freeway, and I had to have the discipline to have my phone on my little holster or whatever it's called, my magnet holster, and not be on my phone while I'm driving. I had to have that restraint and have the discipline. Continued. Been driving for, I don't know how many years, 20 years. Still had to have that discipline to put my phone on a holster. Why? Because there was somebody that blew a tire out, and had I not had my phone, we would have gotten into a car wreck. You still have to maintain that discipline. So we know that in order to get a degree, I got to go to college for 4 years. In order to learn how to be an artist, I have to put in time and discipline and have restraint to become an artist. In order to learn anything in life, You have to have discipline, be deliberate, have a plan, educate yourself, be consistent. But for some reason, in the areas that are the most important, the most crucial with how your life will play out, in your relationships, your relationship with God, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your family, and your relationship with your friends, we have the nerve to think that it's just gonna be organic and it's just gonna fall into place. Nothing in life works this way. Nothing works this way. You have to be persistent and intentional and focused to thrive in any area of your life. You want to win with money? Make money something that you're focused and you're disciplined and you're intentional. But you want to win in your fitness? You want to lose weight? Be focused, disciplined, intentional, have a plan for your fitness. That's how everything works. Literally everything else works like this. But we think it's just going to happen organically. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And I don't know where we got these goofy ideas from, but it's nonsense. And if you think that's how this stuff works, if you think that's how your relationship with God works, you think that's how you're gonna have a flourishing marriage, you think that's how you're gonna be a good father, you think that's how you're gonna be a good friend, you think that's how you're gonna be a good church member, a local church member, nothing works this way. Everything requires consistency, discipline, a plan, action, deliberate, intentionality. Approach your relationships that way. You will have amazing relationships. Throw your relationships on autopilot like you're freaking driving a Tesla on the 405 and you want to take a nap. And guess what? Life don't got a autopilot feature. It don't got an autopilot feature. You're going to crash. It's going to be bad. There's going to be blood. It's going to be messy. Throw your relationships on autopilot. See how that turns out for you. Throw your relationship with God on autopilot. See how that turns out for you. Sorry if I'm coming off angry. I'm not angry. I'm passionate about this because I feel like so many of us get hung up on this idea in so many different ways, and it's just frustrating. We're projecting this energy, man, because nothing else works that way. So anyway, Proverbs 18:24. Sorry, I'm gonna keep. This is a word for some of you guys. If you're lonely, if you're isolated, I'm not talking about somebody sinned against you. No, I'm just talking about you want more from your friendships. This is a word. Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. Make yourself friendly. Make yourself friendly. All right? Guys, it's been real. Thank you so much. If you found this video helpful, give this video a like for the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully, some of you guys can extract something practical from it and apply it to your life, even if it's just a mentality shift. Love you guys. Appreciate if you want to partner with what we're doing. Patreon's always the best way. And I'll see y'all later, all right? Peace.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you found it valuable, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. You can check out one of the other videos related to this that'll be over here.